Hi, everyone. My name is Elisabeth, and I'm a part of the Nordic team here at Euro-based People. Today, I'm joined by a very exciting guest. His name is Jens Torbjørn, and he is an expert in his field of neuro inclusion. And he's worked in the IT industry for several years, taking on role as both a consultant and a manager. And today, we'll be diving into his expertise and also his work. Uh, of neuro inclusion in Unicus Norway. So thank you for joining us. I'm very excited to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
So I was thinking, do you want to have a short introduction of yourself and tell us a bit about your career so far?
Sure. Yeah, I joined Unicus nearly 2 years ago as a consulting manager with primary responsibility for our IT consultants who are all autistic. Then fairly quickly after I joined, we merged with the Auticon, which is now part of our global organization in 15 countries in Europe, US, Canada, and Australia, New Zealand. And I got responsibility for our neuro inclusive services in Norway, these are training, development, analysis, we are different services than our IT consultants. I have international experience in sales, marketing. I've been consulting in business training, B2B training for years in the US, in Norway, Europe. But now I'm here as an employee of Unicus Auticon.
Very exciting, for sure. So, would you say it's any different when we talk about neuro inclusion, right? Like, would you say it's have you experienced any differences working globally and in Norway? Is there any differences between the countries?
Well, I would say on the societal level, there are differences between some mature, like UK is more mature with respect to neurodiversity and neuro inclusion on a societal level. But when it comes to the in the work market and organizational level, it's not that much different. It's high unemployment. We're talking about 40 to 50% among all neuro divergent people, and for autists it's 70-80%, and that's consistent across the globe actually. But we do see certain markets, the Nordics are starting to pick up, but like United Kingdom, they're way ahead on the society level.
Okay. That's very interesting. So in terms of that, like, have you seen you talked about the progress, but have you seen any changes you started out until now? Like, has it been any improvement?
Well, I could not on the on the societal level. It's not much, in Norway. A few places, if you go to concert, they say you might have some, some quiet facilities and something, but very, very little on the societal level. What we do see in the business market when we talk to organizations, we see that neurodiversity, there's a growing awareness that neurodiversity is it is. I mean, that's a fact, and neuro inclusion is an act. So, neurodiversity exists. It's approximately 15% of the population has anything, whether it's autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia. But the awareness that also goes with larger organizations have a similar level of neurodiversity. So I see people, it's starting to come on the agenda for HR, for some people, DI, people, but on the management level, it's still fairly off the agenda. But there is a difference from when I started. It's coming up now, and I've been invited. I do hold a lot of speeches, presentations, trainings. For HR Norge, I do. I'm on my second round of doing some of my third, actually, trainings, etc. So we do see, and we have a few large organizations actually starting to use our services, which is so that's a big difference from a year, but it's more like individual companies are starting to pick it up. On the general level, it's still fairly low awareness level, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that insight as well. It's interesting to obviously to hear the progress, and obviously still is a problem on the management level, but things are picking up slowly. Yeah, definitely. So in terms of like what neuro inclusion is a broad term, but can you explain a bit more about what that means?
Neuro inclusion, neurodiversity are all the different, neurodivergent variations that we see from like aforementioned autism, ADHD, etc. That it's like the permanent wiring of the brain, which is different. And then neuro inclusion means to include people that are neurodivergent in the normal setting. So it's like as opposed to, it's not look as it's not a handicap, it's not a condition, it's just a variation of normality. So we're talking about neuro inclusion in my book is to expand what's normal, so people who are slightly different are still part of the whole, are included, and unfortunately that's not the reality for most people. Are excluded, people are discriminated against, and the consequences are of course for the individual, they're excluded, but also the companies and organizations are missing out on talent, missing out on really strong sides and unique solutions, unique perspectives. So neuro inclusion is, we're talking about quintuple wins. It's for us. It's for the individual, it's for society, it's for organizations, it's for customers. So it's actually, it's really win to which is, and that's our purpose, and my purpose is to make, actually our vision is to build a more inclusive world. And we do that by improving conditions for neurodivergent people in the workplace.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of like the misconception companies might have about neurodivergent like professionals, could you tell me a bit about that? What experience you have within that?
Yeah, there's stigma and stereotypes. With the autists, that they are all into only math or IT. Of course, it's the truth is most autists have a fewer, they're not very broad in their level of expertise or interest, but they have all sorts of different interest, and also what we used to say, if you have met one autist, you met one autist, because the diversity among autists are really broad. And then ADHD, they can't sit still or they can't concentrate. Dyslexic people cannot read, or so there's all these misconceptions, and there's the really it's not strange, but the really sad thing is that people are both underestimated and overestimated. We're talking about people there's a spiky profile, so you have certain areas that you're really strong with, really strengths, and then you have certain areas where you're really weak. I mean, you can be much stronger than the general population in certain areas, but then you're much weaker in other areas, executive function, or you have vulnerability when it comes to sound or light or whatever. So there's it's but it's lack of knowledge, it's lack of awareness, it's stigma and stereotypes that stand in the way of building a more neuro-inclusive world, which we are all about.
So what you said there about inclusivity, obviously, like in terms of the recruitment process and the onboarding process here, how would you or what is your experience with creating a better process of like diminishing these kind of biases?
Well, the thing, everybody think we'll start with the recruitment. I'd like to back up, because if you're not good at taking on a certain type of talent, it doesn't help if you're good at recruiting them. So I would say, begin by, be good at managing people in a neuro-inclusive way, building a more neuro-inclusive culture, and having more neuro-inclusive processes. But when that's all said and done, recruitment is to be more neuro-inclusive. It has to be, this, considering, sending the questions in advance, making the method of being questioned, more flexible, being not having huge group interviews, at least not initially, fewer people, and having, environment that are sensory, pleasant for somebody, and basically ask what kind of accommodations they need to be able to perform well in the interview, and then just also realize that a lot of people who are neurodivergent are great at the job, but they're not necessarily great at interviewing. So interviewing is and what you want to interview to measure job success and skills needed, not unless your job is to be interviewed. Then looking at ways to judge skills based on what they need to do the job, not to pass through the really the tight eye of that you have to pass through to get a job. And for instance, us when we recruit, also the one thing that people make this 30 bullet points of what juggle this and do that and all these soft skills, and they have to be super person. When we hire, we have two requirements: IT focus and autistic. You have to be an autist. Those are our two must-haves. And then of course we're looking for different skills within that, but we have as few demands initially to get people, because a lot of neurodivergent people self-disqualify. So if you have too many demands, a lot of people just say, no, I know that's not for me. I'm not, it's kind of similar, but the way it used to be with women and men, where men, yeah, I can do it, wing it. And well, a lot of women would say no, and there's this 1 point out of 20 I don't qualify. So with neurodivergent people, that's very strong self the exclusion. So but the thing is that you have to make sure that the recruitment process actually measures the skills and the talents they need to do the actual job. And that, to me, I've done recruitment for a few years myself, and I see regardless of neuro the neuro situation, I think the business is not really I'm not impressed by the way because I think that the recruitment process often is far away from actually measuring the skills needed for the job. And then what we see, certain IT companies are getting good because these guys or girls coming with their hoods, they're not really talkative, not very social, but they're extremely good at their job. So they found ways to recruit them they have to make the recruitment process compatible with the skill sets or the type of people that they're trying to recruit. So
yeah, definitely. So in terms of bringing in, like for example, like myself as an external recruiter, to bring me in as a negotiator in that process, when the companies have such set qualifications that they measure.
Yeah, I think that if you built up a really good neuro-inclusive skill sets, so you definitely can be a good advisor for companies that are not so good, see how to make your recruitment process more neuro-inclusive. And also, like you mentioned, the onboarding process is equally important, if not even more, because a lot of companies have fairly decent recruitment process. They have HR and they have recruitment partners. With onboarding is a bit of a underestimated field, because the recruitment partners usually let go and even HR, let's go on, it's up to the individual manager to implement the onboarding. And we've seen that with actual companies that we work with, and we see that as a really big minus, because for a neurodivergent individual, the whole process from if they come through the recruitment process, and let's say they're starting up in 3 months or something, that period to pre-board and onboard and follow up and include them in the business, it's very different from other type or certain type of neurodivergent individual. Is really difficult period, and it's very vulnerable, and a few weeks, if it goes wrong, that can be it's not necessarily a wrong hire, it's a wrong onboarding. And what I've seen is that when something goes wrong with onboarding, it's always blamed that it's always blamed on the recruitment process. It was the wrong person, or we didn't find, we did something wrong. When actually, often it can be tracked back. The real root cause is poor onboarding. But onboarding never gets the blame, because it's such a poorly defined process usually, and it's and it also goes down to the manager, who might not have time, might not have the skill set, might not have the to do it properly, and there might not be a well-defined process. So
no, definitely. No, thank you for that. That's an interesting insight for sure in terms of the onboarding process. Like, how do you think going forward in the next few years, or just now as well, like how do you think we can improve it?
Well, it has to be a recognition that the current way of recruiting and onboarding and managing and developing and training and building careers for people that are neurodivergent is lacking. So the first step is awareness, being aware of the fact that things are not as they should be, and then to build knowledge that kind of like the theory, what to do, and then competence, actually skills at actually doing it. How do you recruit neuro-inclusively? How do you onboard? How do you manage? How do you develop their careers? How do you make professional accommodations, reasonable accommodations of people? Could be lighting, could be some soundproofing of these are usually fairly it's reasonable accommodation that's needed. But so I think it's knowledge and then skills, building neuro-inclusive skill set. It's actually, and one of my project, I think neuro-inclusive should be part of management, should be part of any management development program. That should be included. And all processes need to be go through. You have to look at your recruitment process. You have to look at your onboarding process and all these other processes, the HR process. When we do analysis of companies, we go in and they get the score from 1 to 4 on all these processes and sub processes, and they get like 1, you do nothing basically. 4, you're like outstanding. And the companies come in at like 2 something, low 2s, overall, and then certain areas they're 1 point something, and then certain they are approaching 3, but it's still in like that. So we do a qualitative and quantitative analysis of the situation, and then we can target the training. But in general, everybody needs to train on this, because it's 15% of the population, and in certain, like the STEM field, IT, like you said, you have probably 20 to 25% neurodivergent employee base and talent base. So it's really not like it's like a huge minority. And they have skill sets, they have perspectives, they have talents that companies need.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I feel like it's a lot of hidden talents that must come to light.
Exactly. So it is actually hidden talent, and it's also like a big reservoir of people that the business are talking about. We lack people. Well, you have talent out there. They have some, they lack some of the formalities or the the neuronormal, the narrow definition of what's normal. They are on outside of that, but that ultimately means their solutions are outside of it. So they think outside of the envelope. They bring different perspectives. Like for instance, autists, they think bottom up as opposed to top down. Most people think, it's the overview and then you drill down. An autist will bring it the other way. And suddenly you can see it's sometimes that's really a lot of extra work, but you really get to see the between step 4 and 5, this doesn't work, when you do the bottom up and combining it, then you get to see, both ways. So they bring a lot of different perspectives that company needs to fix the problems that they're facing, basically.
And definitely, and also what you said with the bottom up process, there is so many hidden things that might be in the broad wider scheme, very difficult to have a solution on, that they can come also in and for example.
A lot of people say, yeah, we've done an overview, yes, we've done the drill down, but they haven't really done the drill down. No. I like an example. I used to, one of our people, she told me, Jens, I can't see a forest, I only see trees. And when I know there's a lot of trees together, I know that's a forest, but I don't see the forest. Most people see a forest and then they'll, there's an oak and there's a pine and so it's like, that's the bottom up, they observe individual trees and knows that's the forest. That's a mental process of having to conclude with that, while you and I, we will see a forest and then we have to look really thorough to see individual trees. So that's an example of a different mind, actually.
Yeah, it's very interesting as well, like how to implement that within it's so important to get that awareness as well. That is so important, for sure. But if we just quickly go back to what we talked about, the onboarding and the recruitment within this, in terms of the recruitment stages that is normally present today, would you say that it could be changed in any way that could maybe be more beneficial?
Well, I could, the stages, the fact that you have the stages are not so bad in the stages are okay, but what the content of each stage, for instance, the tendency of saying, do the whole thing and bring me 3 final, candidates, we choose. I think that's wrong. I think you should turn it all around and say, bring in as broad set of talents as you can, have a little bit of an, open mind towards some outside of the box candidates, who bring something extra into it, so that you overinvest in the early stage, as opposed to when you do, your business, people set it out and they just want to see the final candidates. And I think a lot of things are lost during the way. So then that's one thing. So have a broader, have quick, invite a lot more people to quick digital interviews or dialogues to get the broader set of talents, and also, reduce the number of bullet points in your, communication ads. Allow different sets of communication channels for the candidate, depending on, if you're going to have a public speaker job, of course, people has to be good, but if you're having an IT specialist, the verbal skills are not necessarily, they don't have to be top notch. No. Then again, you can have dyslexic people are outstanding verbally, but not so good with writing. So it's it comes down to and this is the following the process. What do we really need? What are the skills we really are looking for, and what is the job today, in 6 months, in 12 months? For real, not the management we think we're going to be, like it as is, and in the near future, what's this person going to do Monday through Friday, the first 6, 12, 18 months, and then what kind of skill set does it need, and how much of the soft skills, like for autists, a lot of them are not very, they use too much energy to participate in, the Friday beer or lunch or company get-togethers. So that, make that voluntary and let them in, maybe participate electronically, or have quiet rooms and diversify the way people can participate. And similar for onboarding. So it's the the steps are the same. I would say with onboarding, pre-boarding is much more important to be how you communicate with the person. For instance, an autist, it's a big change for them to start somewhere new. Just to how do they get there? How that the building, who they're going to meet the first few weeks. So the more you can clarify, because their minds go and they analyze. So the more you can just provide them with information, the more calm they are, and the more they can perform at their best.
Yeah.
So it's energy conservation. So it's just that's you must do that with neurodivergent people in a better way, because they're not this sink or swim strategy that's some old-fashioned companies use. That can be even ADHD person can work fine, but it might not. Or so it's just be aware, having the going through the process, and I would say talk to people who are either experts or people who are neurodivergent themselves. Can see, look at the process. How does that work? Which we do. I consider myself an expert now, but I ask our people, I say, what do you think? What's your input? How's your experience? And knowing that have you met one? You have met one. They are not, they're very individually different, although there's some traits that are similar.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, thank you for it's very interesting for sure. And it's very important as well to raise awareness, but also to understand that this is just, as you said, individually, like everyone is like different in some kind of way, and then it's just to implement that strategy to move forward for more inclusivity.
Yeah, and the thing is that one thing about accommodations, what you see is like the universal design mindset, that if because let's say people are light sensitive. The autists are very normal, but a lot of more people are that. So if you can provide certain rooms that are more dimmed light, or they have softer light bulbs, the more yellow and then white, etc. So or soundproofing for people who have, for different reasons. Some are neurodivergent, some are just having that one particular problem. Older people are hard of hearing. So when you do accommodations, they benefit all. Even if it's so all the accommodation within reasons that you can do is to the benefit of a lot more people. So it's like it makes everybody more productive in a sense.
Yeah, but I just want to ask just one, if you could, So if you could if you can give one piece of advice to a company that looking to become more inclusive, what would that be?
Well, I would say the awareness and knowledge. Learn the basics. That's why most companies we meet, they start with awareness training. We do awareness training, then we do basic training, which is just open your eyes, and then it's the basic knowledge of neurodiversity and neuro inclusion, and then if it's I think that, and then you can train further on, or you can analyze, and then also what we do some places, you have some mentors or some ambassadors that really want to go into it, who can be internal resources. We do trainings for that, so you can have certain internal resources who knows where to go, point you in the right direction, not managers, but just people. So awareness, basic training, and then maybe have some lighthouses there who can, ambassadors who can help be an internal resource. People can go and say, hey, I'm an autist, what do I do, for companies. That I think that's a good way. And of course, look at the basic HR processes, like I mentioned before, make sure there's no glaringly discriminatory practices there.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Jens. It was very nice to hear more about this, and obviously it's important to raise awareness, and I really appreciate that you want to join me for this podcast today, and very exciting, and definitely look forward to see where this goes in the future, and it's important that we start today.
Yeah, please talk to, you can get back to me anytime, so I'll be glad to fill in on any additional questions you might have.
Yeah. Thank you so much.